The mansion was silent, the kind of silence that felt almost sacred, broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioning and the occasional rustle of leaves outside. But as Mr. Arman, a wealthy businessman whose life revolved around boardrooms and endless deals, walked down the polished marble hallway late one evening, he stopped dead in his tracks. From behind the closed door of his young son's study, strange voices drifted out, tones and words he didn't recognize, sounds that didn't belong to the world he knew. They were not English, nor the casual chatter of the household staff. They were soft, rhythmic, and strangely melodic. For a moment, he thought his mind was playing tricks on him. But as he leaned closer, his heart began to pound. Someone inside was teaching his child, in languages he didn't even understand. If this story touches your heart even in the first moments, please don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. And tell us in the comments below, what's the most unexpected act of kindness you've ever witnessed in your life? Arman pressed his ear closer to the door, confusion etched on his face. He had hired countless tutors over the years, all the best his money could buy, to make sure his son Ali received nothing but the finest education. But none of them sounded like this. He slowly pushed the door open, careful not to make a sound. Inside, the sight before him was one he would never forget. His maid, Zoya, the woman who dusted the bookshelves and swept the floors each morning, was sitting cross-legged on the rug. In front of her sat little Ali, eyes wide, hands folded neatly, listening with a seriousness far beyond his 7 years. Zoya was gently guiding him, her voice flowing with patience and warmth as she taught him to repeat words in French, then Spanish, then German, followed by Arabic, and finally Mandarin. Arman's mind reeled. Zoya was supposed to be nothing more than household help. A maid. Someone who wiped the marble floors, served tea, and disappeared into the background. Yet here she was, speaking fluently in 5 different languages, pouring knowledge into his son with such passion that it made his throat tighten. Ali's eyes lit up with excitement every time he managed to pronounce a difficult word correctly, and Zoya's smile grew brighter as she encouraged him. For the first time, Arman realized he was witnessing something money could not buy, a kind of love and dedication that no expensive tutor had ever shown his child. But this revelation also brought guilt crashing into him. Arman had always believed his wealth could solve every problem, that money could replace time, presence, and care. He had been too busy chasing contracts and building empires to notice the emptiness in his son's eyes. Ali barely spoke at the dinner table, often withdrawing into silence while his father scrolled through emails. The boy's loneliness was invisible to Arman, yet obvious to someone like Zoya, who noticed the details money blinded him from. She had quietly filled that void, giving Ali not just knowledge, but also the comfort of being seen, heard, and loved. As days turned into weeks, Arman found himself drawn back to that doorway more often, secretly watching their lessons. The strange voices no longer seemed strange. They became beautiful to him, symbols of connection and patience, of a bond that reminded him of something he had almost lost, the innocence of his own childhood, when his late mother would sit by his side and teach him verses in her native tongue. The memory stung, but it also softened him. Still, a storm brewed in his heart. Pride whispered that he should put an end to it, that a maid had no place teaching his son, especially when he could afford the world's most decorated professors. Yet another voice, gentler, quieter, told him that what he was witnessing was priceless. That knowledge delivered with love carried more weight than anything wrapped in prestige. He wrestled with his ego, torn between old beliefs and this new truth unraveling before his eyes. One evening, he finally stepped into the room instead of hiding at the door. Ali looked up, startled, but Zoya remained calm, lowering her eyes as though bracing for scolding. But instead of anger, Arman's voice trembled with something deeper. He asked Ali to show him what he had learned. The boy hesitated, then shyly introduced his father to 5 greetings in 5 different languages. His voice wavered at first, but when Arman's eyes filled with tears, Ali grew more confident. For the first time in years, father and son shared a moment not defined by wealth or distance, but by pride and connection. Zoya explained her story hesitantly, expecting him to dismiss her. She told him she once dreamed of becoming a linguist, of working in embassies, of traveling the world. But poverty and responsibility had chained her dreams, forcing her into work as a maid to support her younger siblings. She had given up her future so others could have theirs. Teaching Ali had not been part of her duty, but part of her heart. She couldn't watch the boy's potential wither in loneliness. So she shared what little she could, hoping it might spark something brighter in him. Armin listened, his throat tight, shame pressing heavily on him. For years, he thought success meant the size of his mansion, the cars he drove, the empire he built. But here was a woman who had nothing, yet gave everything. And here was his son, blooming not because of expensive tutors, but because someone cared enough to sit on the floor and hold his hand through mistakes. That night, Armin made a decision that would change all their lives. He offered to sponsor Zoya's education, to give her the chance she had been robbed of. But more importantly, he promised himself to change, not just as a provider, but as a father. He began carving out time for Ali, even if it meant losing deals. He sat with him during lessons, learning alongside him, stumbling over foreign words and laughing at his mistakes. The mansion that once echoed with silence now resonated with voices, warm, joyful, multilingual voices that symbolized healing. Months later, Ali gave a small speech at his school in multiple languages, leaving the audience astonished. But when he looked into the crowd, he didn't search for applause. He searched for two faces, his father's and Zoya's, both beaming with pride. In that moment, Armin realized that wealth had finally found its true purpose. Not in possessions, but in nurturing hearts, lifting others, and building bonds that could never be broken. And so, the rich man who once measured life in profits and numbers discovered a richer truth. The greatest legacy he could leave his son was not an empire of wealth, but the power of compassion, resilience, and the courage to see beyond status. If this story touched your heart, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. And before you go, I have a special request. Comment below and tell us, if you could learn one language that connects you to love, culture, or family, which language would it be, and why? Your words might inspire someone else today.